So how long the talk will be?
It'll be like 45 minutes. We have
Okay,
10 to 15 minutes for a question answering.
okay, good. Thank you. So now I'm sharing the screen. And hello everyone, and thank you, Professor Ping Yan and Professor Xiao Yi. And today we're going to talk about the miniaturized microscope for molecular imaging. Thank you for the opportunity to present our most recent work. I'm from Department of Biomedical Engineering and Electrical Engineering for Institute for Quantitative Health Science and Engineering from Michigan State University. And so in the clinics, actually, most of the time, people already use the wide field fluorescence imaging to guide the surgery. But now we find that uh, more details has to be provided to guide the surgery. So that's why we are moving towards the microendoscope driven by the MEMS technology to make a comprehensive study of the tissue sectioning. So today I'm going to share the most recent result we got, different modalities. Most of them are translational for clinics. And first topic, I'll cover the microsystem-based confocal microendoscope for clinical application, and introduce a little bit about the in vivo imaging on the human GI tract, which is translational totally. And the third one, we are working on the molecular guided surgery using the wide field fluorescence guided confocal microendoscope to guide the surgeon. And the fourth one, actually, this is combine the fluorescence and label-free molecular imaging using the multi-photon and second harmonic microscope. Eventually, we're going to build a miniaturized endoscope driven by the MEMS devices and actuators. And this is preclinical on the small animal. Very recently, we tried to get it into the clinics by collaborating with the local hospital and clinics. And in the future, we are also going to mass produce those microscopes for the whole society so that nearly everyone can have the access to the open source microscope for small animal imaging and for the future human studies. And first, I'm going to introduce a little bit about the GI tract imaging using the microsystem-based confocal microscope we are developing. And for example, we take an example about the GI tract colon colorectal cancer, which is the third leading cause of the cancer-related deaths. And the epithelium differentiates in the vertical cross-sectionally. And also, this is kind of preferred view by the pathologist when they review all the HE slides. So usually for the human, the cancer developed from the epithelium to the upper layer, to the mucus and lumen. It's around 400 microns. So ideally, the microscope should cover uh, very deep depths. And if you can directly develop the to visualize the vertical cross-section imaging compared to the traditional horizontal one provided by the traditional conventional microscope, that would be great. So now with this goal, we try to develop the multispectral near-infrared MEMS-based confocal fluorescence microscope. And the reason we use an infrared because its penetration is a little bit deeper compared to the visible range. In the visible range, actually, there's another problem, which is the autofluorescence, because nearly all the tissue can be excited in the visible range, get the fluorescence background, which is kind of limit your imaging depths into the tissue. And we try to develop the targeted cross-sectional imaging directly into the tissue using this confocal fluorescence microscope. And eventually, we try to demonstrate the miniaturized microscope for clinical trial using the MEMS technology, which is a microelectromechanical system. And this is architecture we've been developing microscope based on the dual access confocal architecture, which were originally developed in Stanford, and then we try to miniaturize the system to get into the clinical trial. And this is illumination on one arm, and then you have an angled excite, so harvesting the fluorescent signal on the other arm, which is crossed. Nowadays, actually, is quite popular in the imaging system, which is light sheet. Light sheet is getting the signal with a 90-degree angle, or you can slightly tilt it. So this kind of low NA objective lens also provide the large field of view. And we didn't sacrifice much on the lateral, but this architecture enhanced the actual resolution a lot. And also you potentially get a longer working distance with a post-objective scanning. So another benefit using this architecture is like you potentially get a lot traveling on the Z if you just like moving the device on the vertical directions. And compared to the commercial system, which is provided, for example, by Pentax, one of the biggest endoscope company, they already have the 480 excitation and pretty good actual resolution. But unfortunately, they don't have very large field of view, or they probably don't have enough travel for the Z. And also the Z is kind of slow because it's driven by memory alloy. And another famous one, popular one in the hospital is right now the CellVisio system from Mauna Kea Technology Company. They are working on the infrared, but maybe not quite ready for clinics yet, but they're working on it. So they already developed the 48080, which is widely used in the clinics. They have excellent actual resolution, but they cannot travel on the Z. So it's kind of fixed depths in the tissue. So this system we are working on is based on the scanner, and then they can provide the multiplex multi-color channels. For example, 670 and 780 with the 5-micron actual resolution, and also large field of view, because I just mentioned about the post-objective scanning, which is like scanner very close to the tissue sample. And eventually we provide the vertical and horizontal cross-sectional imaging capability in the same device, which is switchable. So we start with ray tracing, ZMax or other software if you like, and to determine all the parameters for this imaging system. Then we first mock up a system using all the macro scale interface and also actuators to mimic the Z. But essentially, there's a MEM scanner we custom developed using the resonance scanning. So this scanning using the implant home drive, electrostatic home drive, to achieve a larger field of view and basically tilting fast with like 3 to 4 kilohertz. And the system is integrated to the handheld system to demonstrate the proof of concept performance. And on the excitation and the detection side, we have two laser, 780 and 670, which is solid state laser. And also we use a PMT for harvesting the fluorescence collected from the other arm through the automated beam. And first we demonstrate the system in the tissue, normal tissue, and also dysplasia tissue in the animal model, which is a APC mouse model, mimicking the rectal cancers. So this is the one originally developed by Professor Eric Fioron's lab in University of Michigan. The mouse developing the APC mouse, basically they have the mutation in the APC gene, which can result the rectal cancer mimicking the human disease. And we also developed the peptide or other contraagent, for example, antibody, small molecular, which is specifically targeting the disease area, which is overexpressing the biomarkers in the tumor. So this is the one, like, for example, the peptide specifically bonding to the dysplasia area, which is showing very bright signal, and also show the morphology of the tissue compared to the histology, which is kind of similar. And when you have this contra agent, you basically have the capability, the system will visualize the difference between dysplasia and normal area. Normal area, you get a very dim because the bonding is less. The targeting agent bonding to the tumor area a lot. So that's why you can see a very strong signal from the dysplasia area. So then essentially get the contrast between the normal and dysplasia or even tumor cancer. Um, so essentially we call this molecular imaging. It's a targeted based on the contrast agent. And also using the system, we can develop the vertical cross-sectional imaging on the tissue sample. And we tried it on the mouse first. And this is kind of a picture of the setup. And it provides the in vivo imaging, longitudinal monitor development of the tumor. And also you can see how the contra agent targeting the tumor area. So the normal area, actually, we also use another dye, which is just show morphology. So no matter normal or dysplasia, you always show the morphology. But the contra agent channel, for example, this case is 670 excitation. And the dysplasia area, you have the red color highlighting the tumor area. That's why you see the mixed with a kind of gold color, which is the color combined color from red and the green. And essentially from the non-targeting eye staining, so you get the morphology imaging, and also you get a targeted imaging channel. So we overlay it and also compare to the traditional histology vertical. And this is a dysplasia area. So you can see this morphology and this is targeting, and then we overlay the both frame and compare to the traditional histology. So the morphology actually is similar to the picture showing the histology. And the molecular imaging basically targeting all these biomarkers in the tissues. And based on all these proof of concept development, we move on to the more complicated microsystem to achieve 3D imaging. So for example, the one I just showed, 1D imaging, 1D scanner. So now we move on to the electrostatic 2D scanner, also based on the resonance scanning principle we published in the journal MEMS. And this system, this device actually can be icing free released. So that's why the yield is relatively high. And also we collaborate with researcher in Arbor National Lab and Professor Daniel Lopez. Right now he's in Penn State University as a director. So, and also Professor Wibo Yatanawesa in the island. So we co-developed these micro scanners for the handheld system and also endoscope system. For example, originally we developed this to integrate it into the hardware, which is handheld format. And later I proved that this one can be integrated to even 5 mm. And for the Z, I still using the traditional actuator, which is a little bit larger. So we, the rest of it is a handheld system, but the tip is 5 mm, which is proof of concept. And then we move on to later, we can demonstrate endoscope totally can be inserted into the medical endoscope, for example, Olympus endoscope. So I will show you in the later slides. So first, with the system developed, you have to characterize it using phantom. For example, we developed the fluorescent beads mixed with agarose or the PDMS, and then you can show the vertical and horizontal using the beads to characterize the resolution and the field of view. For take a very simple example. For example, when you stand the die or stand it with the targeted imaging contraagent. So you potentially can get the XY with large field of view, which is 800 by 400 micron, with 5 frames per second, and at the different depths by moving the Z actuators. So you can tell the cellular resolution imaging very easily, and also it is histology-like qualities. And if you do the contra-agent, so for example, if you have the contra-agent targeting the tumor or dysplasia area, and the target agent will not or minimally bound to the normal area, so you will see very dim signal from the normal area, which is here, and then this is the dysplasia area or tumor area here, which is highlighted. You can see a very tiny cellular resolution images, textures. So that means the quality of the imaging provided by this kind of miniaturized and microendoscope is relatively high. So around 3 to 5 micron. So, and also with the tiny distal end, we can put into the rat colon easily. So when you get these 5 millimeter distal end, you can insert into the rat colon. And for example, like to see the crypts, and also there's a targeting to see the to highlight the area. And also we are collaborating with Professor Gary Luker in the University of Michigan, who is famous in the breast cancer research study. So he have the developed the breast cancer mouse model, and then we try to use the handheld system, but with the 5 millimeter distal end to imaging the breast cancer area, and you can tell the structure similar to the histology slides. Actually, this is an IG slides, so with specific highlighting the overexpressed biomarkers. So this is the developed system showing the histology-like fluorescent imaging. So overall, actually, we just like touch a little bit about the handheld system and also miniaturization using different MEMS scanner or actuator based on the MEMS technology. So to try to show you the concept that it is possible to develop multicolor confocal microscope or other modality microscope and show the targeted cross-sectional imaging, either horizontal or vertical cross-sectional imaging, or even 3D in the future. I can demonstrate later. And also another essential part is the microsystem technology, which is enabling the miniaturization of the whole system. So then, based on all these concepts, later we basically just like enhance every single element in the hardware. For example, the optics for the endo microscope, multicolor or higher resolution based on different architecture, or developing the better contra-agent. Right now, we are also working on other contra-agent, for example, HA targeting CD44, which has been recently published in ACS journals. And also the MAPS technology, we try to develop different kind of micro actuator sensors, scanners based on electrostatic working principle or thin film piezo working principle, and also like electrothermal, for example, vanadium dioxide. So I will cover those content in the next sections. So with all these miniaturized systems, you get a very tiny one into the endoscope. So into the medical endoscope like this. And then we move on to the clinical trial with Dr. Shai in the VA hospital. We first started with the ICG. Actually, this is a collaboration between Stanford and Michigan State. We are moving on to the targeted imaging. And Professor Wibo Piana used to be in Stanford, now in Thailand. He's also working on the clinical trial in Thailand right now. We try to move the endoscope in Thailand to perform the, for example, cervical applications. So here you basically first stand the ICG dye, which is FDA approved, and then you put the endoscope there to imaging the surface of the tumor area. Actually, this is a polyps, like early lesion. And then you can reconstruct the imaging on the LabVIEW based program. So later I'll introduce more. Okay, here. So each frame actually is relatively small. So to get a larger frame, so essentially you have to use a mosaicing to do the real-time mosaicing or do the post-processing mosaicing. So till now, we have developed the real-time mosaicing to get a larger field of view. So now this is a post-processed mosaicing to show the concept. But we do have the real-time mosaicing now. So this is the one based on the 1D scanner, now we have the 2D scanning and also even XZ scanning. So which is essentially the scanner can switch the cross-sectional imaging modality from horizontal to vertical smoothly. So this is the one like has a large travel on the Z direction, which is very unique in the field. That is 300 hertz Z traveling along the Z travel. So and the travel range is around 300 micron or more. So in the resonant mode. So it's taken by the high-speed camera, and then we try to slow down and show its normal speed. So original speed actually is 300 hertz, taking speed camera. So then with this one, in the miniaturized system, we already demonstrate that on the human tissue, both larger field of view, XY, cross-sectional imaging, and also XZ, vertical cross-sectional imaging. So there's no other miniaturized microendoscope to demonstrate the XZ. Sorry. So the thin film piezo, we have the thin film piezo multi-axis MEM scanner developed based on the thin film piezo PZT, which has even larger travel range. So for example, this is like a zigzag shape, which already demonstrates 530 micron using thin film piezo with gold coated on the surface. And essentially we integrate such kind of system in the 5mm endomicroscope to get a large travel on the Z and also showing the XY scanning. So this is an integrated system, looks like. So with a Z moving to both resonant and DC, and also have the internal XY scan. Quite integrated, fully monolithic. So another one I just mentioned about, we're using the electrothermal way to demonstrate the vertical cross-sectional imaging. For example, this is a tissue, we have the cartoon to show that vertical, and then if you sweep the vertical scan, you get the 3D. So there's such kind of system we just recently developed with the Air Force in Dayton. So we use a vanadium dioxide film, which is an electrothermal one, to drive the MEM scanner to get the 3D MEM scanning scanners. And also this one is dicing free. We just like using the femtosecond laser to knock out all the linked arm. And then this is the area actually, we'll also knock it out. See the link arm here. So the light will go through this hole. Eventually here, there will be hole. And then the field in factor is really high for this kind of device because you basically don't lose any area. This is the area for illumination, and this is the area for steering the beam. So smoothly, kind of seamlessly integrated. And with all the miniaturized device, we are working on the molecular guided surgery, which is kind of a hot topic right now for all these imaging guided surgery area, imaging modalities for the molecular imaging field. So we still combine the wide field fluorescence imaging and use the wide field imaging to guide the confocal microendoscope, which is fully translational in the clinics. So for example, this one, we developed the imaging system all on the moving cart. And this is a handheld system, but essentially the inside I show you is a miniaturized architecture. And we already demonstrate on the human sample to get a two color, for example, showing the adenoma using the ICG, or glycol to show the morphology. And another channel, you can use a DRAGFi targeting the nuclei. But essentially, you can change it to antibody conjugated with some other fluorescence dye to targeting specific markers. And this is a morphology for the adenoma, and this one basically is and we collected through our imaging fluorescent imaging system, two color. One is showing the targeted imaging, another is non-targeted. This is showing the morphology. So now this is the one we collected with the human colon. So can show the morphology, like very likely this is a crypts, and see that its morphology is so similar to the histology. So we can claim it's a histology-like imaging. And also you have the nuclei scan. So the DRAGFi basically targeting the nuclei cell. You can count it. So, and you merge all these two images to show targeted imaging for both morphology and also the targeting channels. Okay, so based on these, we developed the very small miniaturized MEM scanner and integrate both Z and XY on different sides. And then the optics is a little bit new in the field. So essentially you move the Z remotely, and then here into the tissue, the focus will move inside the tissue a little bit. So here we can move up to 200 to 300 micron inside the tissue. And the full system can be integrated to the 5 mm packaging, which can be easily insert into the microscope, medical endoscope, for example, Olympus one. And also the nice thing is this system is fully static, so based on the simple design. And there's another one. We first combined the spyglass, originally from Boston Scientific. Right now, spyglass already discontinued. We move on to the camera-based. But back to that time, we try to easily integrate these fiberglass fiber bundles and for the wide field imaging. And the engine, 3D scan engine here. So this is XY, and on the backside is XZ. These are all wire bonding, wiring system to fish it out. So then this system, first we use the stainless steel packaging and then easily put into the endoscope area. You can see, you can put into it, and then this is a camera. You can see the narrow band or other wide field. So essentially we try to deliver, this is the imaging, we try to deliver the histology like, you can see the crypts, very likely this is a traditional HE slides, and then compared to our imaging, which is standard by IR dye 800, which is Lyco. And another one, just like I mentioned about, so in the former slides, I already show you the simpler endoscope we developed for the human study, clinical human study. And right now, this is the result we already published in the transaction on the medical imaging. So the MEM scanner was based on the lithotripsy scan. So you can potentially get a very large field of view using lithotripsy scan because everything running in instant mode. So each frame is relatively small, but if you real-time mosaic, and then this is on the human brain, mouse brain. So you can see the blood vessel, and also the other color is for the morphology. So essentially you get a larger field of view. So every single frame is around 650, but when you move around and then real-time mosaic it, so you can randomly move around the tissue based on the algorithm. So if you're interested, you can check our medical imaging transaction paper on the real-time mosaicing, and also how to do the face control, because the MEM scanner sometimes is not that stable. You have to lock the face, and there's an algorithm we developed to automatically lock the face instead of traditionally we just like manually tune the face. But in real case, the face stabilization has to be added. So with this kind of system, we build a handheld, which is outside diameter with a shell. Everything is like 3 mm. It's for surgical application. We collaborate with Professor Evan Rosenthal. He's quite well known in the field, especially on head and neck and brain. So this one has been used for head and neck tissue. For example, they already have a clinical approved antibody conjugate with glycol dye, which is IB approved, and then now it's clinical validated on the human patient with systemic injection into the human body before the surgery. It's a penisumab conjugated with glycol, which is IR dye 800. It's an anti-EGFR targeting. So we are working on, for example, like this one basically shows the fluorescent imaging. This is collected by Pro system from the glycol company. They basically show the concept that the tumor area, for example, the one you can see in the cheese slice and also IHC, basically highlight the EGFR overexpressing. Their antibody nicely targeting the tumor area with the fluorescence highlighting. So we try to provide the both wide field and also the microscale images, just like the one we just showed in the colorectal cancers. So with all the system I just introduced, using confocal, actually, we're not limited to confocal. Right now in the lab, we try to develop the confocal, multi-photon, and also we're working on the acoustic endoscope. So for example, the multi-photon system, I try to touch a little bit about it. So compared to the one photon excitation, multi-photon or two photon only happen, this phenomena only happen with a high end objective length, happen at the focus area. One photon area, actually, you get a lot of scattering out of focus. So, which is essentially multi-photon provide much better resolution, also dynamic range than the fluorescence confocal one photon fluorescent imaging. So, they have a lot of advantages and also reduce the photo damage and chemical specificity, and high depth penetration, and in hearing the sorry, and multi-photon technology is quite useful for non-invasive imaging of the live tissues, which has already been proved by several groups, like Professor Chris Shi in the Cornell and also Professor Xindu Li in Johns Hopkins University. They work on the non-invasive technology a lot. And we also try to build a miniaturized system for clinical applications. So there are several challenges actually. So for the multi-photon, right now, the laser is one of the biggest challenges because it's too bulky, and we try to develop the fiber-based fiber laser to excite the tissue, replace the traditional bulky laser system. And another one is the how do you move to the clinics? What kind of application we should validate at the beginning? So we chose human oral cancer, which is kind of adhering to the work we already did with Professor Evan Rosenthal in Stanford. And also here we have very good facility for large animal and small animal. So for example, canine is kind of dog. Right? So you can imaging the oral. And also I'm working with oral cancer expert in University of Michigan, Leo. He's providing the oral cancer from human patient and also the animal, small animal he custom developed in the. So you can tell the difference between normal and cancer using multi-photon using multi-photon modalities. This is one of the examples. So, and in the multi-photon, actually, second harmonic modality can be provided because you can see the collagen also. You can visualize the FAD or NADH, these kind of biomarkers intrinsic. So for example, the cancer area has an irregular cell shape, and in the epithelial and trauma collagen are separated in the normal area, but the cancer area has so different texture. So this imaging actually is label free. You don't need to apply contra agent, but you can basically visualize it based on the tissue, different modality, different tissue types in the sorry the different type of tissue in the animal or human patient. So this is example I try to show you using the HE slide to show you the where's the normal and then squamous and the dysplasia area and also cancer area. So using the multi-photon endoscope, we try to demonstrate we can provide the histology-like images to replace this traditional time-consuming process in the real time. So for example, the normal tissue region, we imaging using this is by tabletop proof of concept to show that we have the capability using label-free multi-photon imaging to show this normal and this is the display area. And there's a little bit of post-processing and we first collect a small area and then try to stitch all these areas to get a large area. So, but I just mentioned we have the real-time mosaicing. Essentially, in the clinics, we try to get a large frame rate in real time by real-time mosaicing. So this is the original setup or kind of conventional setup in nearly all the labs. They have very bulky laser, but this laser is already miniaturized based on the fiber. So it's a fiber-based, it's a fiber femtosecond laser. And this is a traditional one. People use a Nikon or Olympus inverted microscope to build the benchtop system. But this is just start. So it basically proves the concept that you can imaging the tissue using. And then we try to develop a system which is very small. And first we demonstrate using 3D printed package to get a MEMS based and also lens inside and then there's a Z to move the lens to get a second harmonic and two photon. And this is a system, it's a handheld system to show the it's a nucleized imaging to show the imaging in the mouse colon. You can tell this is a multi-photon imaging on the. And right now we are working on the fiber laser, so custom made in the lab to demonstrate that it can everything can be on the clinical mobile part and moving to the clinics. It's a fiber amplifier, and then essentially we developed 1550 nanometer excitation, and with the second harmonic crystal PPLN, and you get a 780. And this area is a handheld system. And when we have introduced the all these different modalities, like confocal and multi-photon system, so now we try to focus on future direction, which is translational. But to translate it, so first you have to have sufficient amount of endoscope to use. So one of the challenging work is to how to mass produce those microscope in short term and distribute it. So, and another one, we try to uh, convince people that this kind of device also good, not just good for translational, also good for basic scientific study in the lab. For example, for the small animal, for cancer research. And we noticed that in the neuroscience, people develop a lot of implantable or wearable device for neural study. But actually, there's also huge demands in the cancer research area if you can build the wearable or implantable. Then there's a challenging for the packaging and also mass producing. So this is a system we use the technology from Germany and Switzerland. The way they made the high-end watch is called Liga. So this is a parts we made out of Liga parts and integrated everything like a Lego. So then the MEMSCAPE engine is inserted in the middle. So and also we have the custom-made housing. This housing has arbitrary geometry. So then when we put everything together like Lego parts, you get a line free. So because optical mechanical packaging is so challenging, so you get alignment free. You just like glue everything together and get the Y times Y out, and essentially you can integrate it into the rat, for example, or study, or the cancer study or some other study, whatever you like. And this is the one we even have a backpack. You can integrate all kind of devices into the backpack. And then the microscope is integrated into the, for example, for this case is breast cancer. So mouse can move around. And but actually here there's also fiber and wires linked out. And in this case, we are not imaging at this moment. So all the connector is in the backpack. So maybe you still remember the movie like back to like 15 years ago. So there's a movie called G-Force, and then the rat wearing this kind of backpack. So we kind of get the inspiration from these movies. So this is a collaboration with a neuroscience scientist, Professor Eric Purcell, and also our engineer professor, Professor Wen Li, and their students working on this implantable. And this is supported by NSF. And now we got the NSF funding to support on the brain. So now we are developing implantable on the brain to study the glioblastoma and medulloblastoma for brain tumors. So at the end, I'd like to thank all the students who really make it work. So like our student, former student just graduated, like Dr. Yao and Dr. Li. Now they're working in the industry as a manager. So in BYD car company and also KLA, those are all big companies in the field. And some other student already moved to the medical school. They used to work in the lab on the models and also cell cultures. And our postdoc, who used to be funded by Pokeyama, now he's a junior faculty, Professor Wang. He's in Xi'an Jiaotong University. And also all the funding agent, SF, NIH, because without those support, we cannot make such kind of hardware, which is very time consuming and costly. Thanks Department of Energy. And also our collaborator for clinical trial, for example, Weibo, he's my former mentor, and also he's still working on microscope and also handheld system in Thailand, and also moving those hardly to the working hard and move those systems to the clinics, which is very hard in the U.S. And also Professor Ola Soga, he's kind of pioneer in the MEMS field, and we're still working on the MEMS-based light sheet and also SAM, spatial light modulation. And also Shai, he's a doctor and chief in the GI division in the VA hospital at Stanford. And also Professor Gary Luker in breast cancer biology area. And also Professor Daniel Lopez in Penn State. Now he's director on the MEMS microsystem facilities. And we're also working on the meta surface and the meta lens to replace the traditional lens. So at the end, I like to introduce a little bit. Actually, we're recruiting and at the Michigan State University and Institute for Quantitative Science and Technology, Health Science and Technology. It's called IQ, and this is our kind of nice building, a brand new building, opened around 6 years ago. And we're recruiting faculties and postdoc and students. So thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zhen. Yeah, for the very nice talk. Yeah, Xiaoyi, do you wanna handle the question answering?
Actually, you can continue. You did a wonderful job in the past. You are still doing a wonderful job. Please, just continue. Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, so you can either type your questions in the question answering area or just raise your hand. We're gonna enable you to talk. So there's one question posted here already by Xinrui Song. Xinrui actually is in my lab. So he asking, thanks for the talk. Can you elaborate a bit more on how you integrated imaging results from both horizontal and vertical views? It was in the earlier part of your presentation.
Yeah, so for example, when you get the horizontal one, and then you move the system along the Z, and then you can do the stacking. For example, in the Amira, there's a stacking algorithm, right? 3D. If you get the vertical, let me show you. There's a cartoon I try to show how the vertical works. So if you get a vertical, so this is vertical, and then you move along the lateral, and then again, for example, using a mirror, you can stitch or you can do the stacking and get the 3D. That's how we integrate those data to get a 3D, no matter horizontal or vertical.
Okay, thank you, Zhen. Xiaoyi, I see your hand is up, so go ahead.
Yeah. One question. I remember around slide 50, you showed one slide about oral tissue or something that to show it's quite easy to distinguish between exactly this one, normal and cancer. So my question is it easy to distinguish between normal and cancer in very early stage? Because usually it's important to detect cancers in early stage.
Yeah, so in early stage, actually, the best way is using targeted agent because that's a molecular.
Okay.
Usually, the molecular level change develop very early compared to the morphology change, right?
Okay.
Targeted agent will help. That's why in our field, the molecular field, we work a lot on the counter agent. Now it's like personalized medicine. So the non-targeted imaging sometimes is kind of delayed. So you
Okay.
analyzing all the morphology change, for example, this label free, maybe sometimes already late. So that's why people are so excited or attracted by the counter agent. So you can specifically bind to certain overexpressed biomarker. For example, like now we are targeting CD44, and also for the head and neck, we are targeting EGFR, right? So those are well-known targets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but actually, so the biomedical problem is so complicated. So that's why you cannot just rely on one modality. You like to combine all these. For example, multi-photon, confocal, and targeted, label-free, all these modalities to study one question. That would be ideal. For that's kind of dream case for all the imaging system developers. They are not limited to one modality. So later, maybe we can integrate OCT because sometimes OCT can see the blood vessel using OCT to see the blood vessel, or you can integrate the photoacoustic to see the blood vessel.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have another question in the chat window posted by Hui Wang. So what is the difference between your MEMS scanner from other MEMS scanners?
Yeah, so one of the difference, for example, so first of all, making MEM scanner is challenging because it needs a lot of facilities. But the good thing is, like in Michigan, we have very good foundry located in Ann Arbor. And also, we used to work in Argonne and also the Stanford facilities. For example, this scanner, this is the only one in the field that can travel so large in Z in using electrostatic way. So there's no other device can do the same thing. So this is quite unique. And we do spend a lot of time. We have a lot of burning and through the whole wafer. And nowadays, we basically achieve high yield processing using, even we can outsource, the contractor can build it based on our process. Actually, we have the scanner, which is built by like this one. I show you the one we built in Argonne. This one actually we already outsourced it, so it can made in Germany, mass produced. And we have so many different modality MEM scanners, like even electrothermal and thin film piezo driven. So these are all unique in the field, especially for traveling Z largely. No other device can achieve this. And also they are hybrid, actually, not just like Z. You can. And also this device has another unique thing is we using dicing free. Everything is etched away by DRE machine from front side and back side. You just knock it out. yield is high. It's not that linear. So MEM scanner, once you're getting small, it's not that linear. So then that's why you need an algorithm. For example, if you travel using sinoid, sinoid is not that linear, right? But it's sinoid. Since it's sinoid, you know it's a pattern is sinoid. So every time we have to characterize it based on the PSD. Someone asked us a question, I didn't read it.
From Lauba Kole.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your insightful talk. He wants to know if there's any disadvantages associated with this technology.
Oh yeah, everything has like disadvantage and advantage. This one advantage is you can get a complicated 3D. Disadvantage, for example, let's say compared to the fiber bundle one. Fiber bundle is so simple. You have a fiber bundle relay, and on the fiber bundle tip, there's a high-NA lens. You can custom make lens. That is simpler. But this one, you get a complicated scanner on the tip. So that's why it's relatively more sophisticated compared to the fiber bundle device. By fiber bundle, you cannot change the Z easily, change the Z depths easily. And also the field of view is so limited by the fiber bundle. You use a pre-objective scan. So all the scanner is on the other side of the fiber bundle. But this one, the scanner is on the tip. So there are always advantage and disadvantage. So we kind of like it because this system, it can deliver large field of view and also has a large dynamic range into the tissue. And also this kind of architecture, not limited to confocal, can be used for multiple other technology. For example, fiber bundle. Bundle itself is a perfect attenuation system for different wavelengths. For example, if you go to infrared, fiber bundle doesn't work anymore. But our system essentially is achromatic. You deliver the infrared, you just need to change the fiber a little bit. The single mode fiber.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So I have one question. So you have seems to have two different techniques to enlarge the field of view. One is improve the hardware. Another thing you do stitching those views together to achieve larger view. But how do you actually handle the motion? Because it's a live organ, live specimen. There's going to be some motion.
Yeah. So that's why the imaging frame rate has to be high. So what we found that in the clinics, more than 5 frames per second, surgeon feel like is sufficient. But definitely you like to produce like video rate, right? 30 is our goal. But most of the time we just stay with 5 hertz, which is sufficient. And also there's another, that's why imaging processing is a key. So you have to use a compensation algorithm to stabilize it, to stabilize the imaging. So for example, in the mosaicing system, it's not just like simply stitch all the frame. So it's also have the canceling and the stabilization through the optical flow. So let's take a very simple example. So we did it before. So maybe here. So this is the image. Can you see the frame?
Yes, right.
Okay. So this is a frame. Each frame we took when we imaging the tissue. Actually, on this frame, based on your eye, you can barely see anything based on your eye. But under the with the mosaicing, you can tell this is a colon. But each frame is kind of fuzzy. This is a real case. Each frame, lower resolution and also a lot of motion. But then in the mosaicing, so that's why algorithm and data processing is so essential. Then you get a very high, you can even enhance the resolution. Like recently we have a published paper in the OSA, Biomedical Optical Express. We can enhance it using deep learning, try to enhance the signals and also the resolution a little bit. And also in the imaging field, people basically know like CV, computer vision. Even you have a low resolution camera, but if you stay at the one area, just like keep scanning, so your imaging, the signal to noise ratio can be essentially improved.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you, Zhen. Any other questions? There are a few comments about, yeah, wonderful talk, exceptional webinar. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This means actually we don't have further questions. Yeah, then actually let's thank our speaker again for the wonderful talk. Thank you so much, Zhen.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, thanks everyone for attending the webinar. We have recorded this webinar. We're gonna upload to YouTube. We're gonna create a channel there and release the information once we have there. So you gotta get a notification. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the great talk, and have a nice day.
All right.
Thank you.
Yo,
Take care.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.